Hi, welcome to Nerdist Book Club. I am Rachel Heine. We are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, and joining me is my lovely co-host and dear friend, Maude Garrett.
Da-da-da. Oh man, I can't do the noise when I'm hanging out backstage, but I got there. Hi.
Hi.
No.
Shall we? I loved this that you put in the notes. Shall we cheers to Dionysus?
Dionysus. To Dionysus, the Greek god of wine and debauchery,
Yes.
who we are dedicating this show, sacrificing our integrity for.
Exactly. Welcome to everyone in the chat. Thank you so much for joining us. If you're new to Nerdist Book Club, it's exactly what it sounds like. And please introduce yourself in the chat. Let us know, what are some of your favorite books? Did you grow up reading? Have you just gotten into it? Are you an audiobook only person? Let us know. Even if you're not new, you can share those thoughts. We want to hear from you.
From where I was sitting, there was a little bit of a pause on your video. So just reiterate, if you're new, introduce yourself, say hi. Are you reading this book for the first time? Are you listening to the book? What kind of books are you into? I see a lot of familiar faces in the comments. A big hi to everyone. And David Nichols Jr. says, hello, everyone. We love that. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Book Club, where we ask you, book good? And in this case, we are covering the Song of Achilles.
That's got to stay. It's a good one.
I'm not letting that one go anytime.
No, it's quite good.
We asked you a book good, but we're doing the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. We're going to talk about the first half of the book. Also, we are doing 2 shows per month. We are going to be dominating the the third and fourth Wednesday of every single month. And so you get a little bit longer. You've got a group check-in at the halfway point for the book. If you have read the whole book, try not to touch on the second half of the book spoilers. We are just mainly talking about characters, the development, the plot thus far.
Exactly. And if you are a regular Nerdist Book Club member, you may notice that our dear friend Hector isn't here. He is booked and busy, so he's taking a little hiatus from book club. But as Maude said, we're going to be doubling down on the discussion with 2 episodes a month. I'm already super excited about it because I feel like, yeah, like you've said, the check-in moment where we get to share our thoughts about everything that's happened, predictions for what's coming up, and then, reassess at the end. So super excited and just thrilled that we're reading the Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. We did read Madeline Miller's other book, Circe, a couple of months ago. I don't know what is time. I have no idea when that was, honestly. But it's one of my favorite books. I think it's one of the most beautiful books I've read in years. And I've been saving Song of Achilles because I was hopeful that we would end up reading it on book club. I've had it in my Audible for a hot minute. So we're going to dive into the discussion.
We sure are. Some people are confessing, this is a safe space to do so, that they finished the book already. It was so easy to listen to. It is so well written that I totally understand. I've blinked and I was halfway through chapter 18, but we are covering up to 16 in this discussion. Ms. Necromancer says, I've already read this book. It's one of my favorites, period. And the good thing about checking in bi-weekly, as True Scorn says, bi-weekly book, this one's heavy on the buy. Happy Pride, everyone. Get your buy on. And even the ancient Greeks were very, very good at that as well. So we're going to be diving deep into the discussion. Feel free to keep commenting. We will be pulling those comments up as well. So any kind of insights that you have, any questions you may have, any hot takes, feel free to contribute that way, and we will expand that discussion like Elle has done on YouTube. Elle has... Tim and Daisy real quick says, first time reading this book, read Circe. I read Circe with you all. Read and read in context. Elle has said, though, the depiction of the characters was incredible. The writer's style was breathtaking. And earlier they'd commented, as a classical scholar, in all caps, I loved this book. And that's what's so amazing about book clubs and why I'm obsessed with them. We are all reading the same words, but we are all taking something very unique away from our experience reading it. And that's what's really great about discussions, because you learn the other people's perspectives. Elle clarifies saying, I wouldn't say bi. That is a contemporary sexuality. I also wouldn't say gay or straight. And there
Love,
is a
love.
love is love.
Yep.
And we are going to be talking about the sexuality in this book because it is a very, very big part of it as well. Jay Bunt Rock says, I liked it as much as Cersei so far. Chris says the mythic characters are really made human in the telling. A lot to dive into, but let's learn a little bit about the book. Achilles, the best of all the Greeks, son of the cruel sea goddess Thetis, and the legendary king Pallas is strong, swift, and beautiful, irresistible to all who meet him. Patroclus is an awkward young prince exiled from his homeland after an act of shocking violence, brought together by chance, but I will argue is anything chance in this book. They forge an inseparable bond despite risking the god's wrath. They are also trained by the centaur Chiron in the arts of war and medicine. But when word comes that Helen of Sparta has been kidnapped, all the heroes of Greece are called upon to lay siege to Troy in her name. Seduced by the promise of a glorious destiny, Achilles joins their cause and, torn between the love and fear for his friend, Patroclus. Little do they know that the cruel fates will test them both as never before and demand a terrible sacrifice. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Greeks love their drama.
Patroclus?
Patroclus.
As I was listening, I don't know it's so funny because I'm not even a recent audiobook convert at this point, but I used to only read physical or ebook copies. Now unless the audiobook is just atrocious, I'm an audiobook gal now. And as I was listening, I was like, Patroclus, and then as soon it's like the name pronunciation, Patroclus. Wait,
emphasis on the tro.
Yes.
Patroclus. And it's like that moment in Harry Potter when, idiots like me who read all the books before the movies came out and it was book 4. Hermione. I was a Hermione girl.
Oh yeah, Hermione. Yeah, Hermione. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then it was Victor Crumb spelling it out. Oh, Hermione. And I threw the book because I was just like, what? But they have a beautiful moment like that here where Patroclus says how Achilles is one of the few that don't rush his name, that actually take the time with the correct emphasis on the right syllable. But yeah, lots to talk about. Madeline Miller, I love her style. Let's learn a little bit more about her.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think her knowledge and writing style, all of it comes together to make these incredible books. So Madeline Miller grew up in New York City and Philadelphia. She attended Brown University. She earned her BA and MA in classics. This makes sense. She has taught and tutored Latin, Greek, and Shakespeare to high school students for over 15 years. The Song of Achilles, her first novel, was awarded the 2012 Orange Prize for Fiction and was a New York Times bestseller. She was also shortlisted for the 2012 Stonewall Writer of the Year. Her second novel, Circe, was an instant #1 New York Times bestseller and won a bunch of awards: Indie's Choice Best Adult Fiction of the Year, Best Audiobook of the Year, and Circe also won the Red Tentacle Award, which is my new favorite award, and an American Library Association awards. And Circe is currently being adapted for a series with HBO Max, which is very exciting. But I love, we've talked about this in the past several times, but I think going all the way back to American Gods, when we talk, you, me, and Hector all talked about how much we love stories about mythology. Yes. And so obviously Circe has a huge component of that, but she is a slightly lesser known character in the, the stories in the Odyssey, all of that, and really giving her a lot more life. Whereas
she's not even the most famous Cersei at the moment. Game of Thrones went.
I know.
Holds my wine.
Exactly. Yeah. But in this one, Achilles is is like one of the Greek heroes that everyone sort of knows about and learns about. And someone in the chat was also just saying that they appreciated that we got Patroclus' perspective in this book instead of Achilles. I would super agree with that.
And it actually makes me guess what Achilles is thinking half the time as well. Yeah. Oh, I love how that dynamic. Oh, we could go into that right off the bat. I don't know if
Yes.
we want any structure or if we're just going to dive straight into
Let's
this.
let's go. We've got all our notes. We can hop around. Let's talk about it. And in the chat, please let us know if there are any particular moments or themes or anything that you want to talk about, because we obviously, this is a community. We want to hear from you too.
Yes. So the fact that, let's discuss the fact that we are looking at this through Patroclus's viewscape. It is first person. It is all him. He's very much the opposite to Achilles. Achilles is so stoic. He is so sure. He has not been bullied, belittled, ridiculed, anything like that. He has incredible influence. He can sort of dictate how his life looks and goes. And Patroclus is very, very different, where he feels like he's cursed. He feels like his life is bad luck. He's been exiled. A lot of negative views, self kind of like views on himself. And we don't really understand why Achilles chooses Patroclus, but I kind of want to talk about having Patroclus as our narrator. Do you feel like we talk about having a reliable narrator in this instance? Do you feel like he is?
I think that he is. I think, there's a couple of things. I think he's a reliable narrator. I think he's a good character, sort of the it's not really a trope, but in a lot of stories, sort of the ordinary or the every man, woman, person that the reader can sort of connect with and relate to in some way. Hopefully no one feels as bad about themselves as Patroclus when when you were younger. But I think
He didn't kill a kid either, so
yes, yes, that's true. Also, hopefully that did not happen to anyone.
yes.
But
Yeah.
I think that he's a reliable narrator, but I think that he is very resistant to see the sides of Achilles he doesn't want to see or deal with. Not necessarily sort of the rose-colored glasses you can get when you are falling in love or you love someone necessarily. I mean, there is a bit of that, but I think he really does not want to grapple with the idea of fate or prophecy, and hoping that that they can change their fate, that they can find some way to be together and things like that. But I also think I think Achilles has more violence within him just because of who he is and the nature of how he became and all of that, that Patroclus is avoiding a little bit in the moments when he's very still, when he's almost like when he's like a predator. You can't hear him coming, in his jaw is clenched. I think there's a fun mystery to that makes you relate to Patroclus as well. Of, does he want this? He doesn't seem interested in it, but as we see, when push comes to shove, it's hard to break away from, the world and society's expectations, especially in a particular time period and society.
Corinne says he doesn't have pride or other obnoxious emotions to hide behind, which makes him quite different from those around him. I'm thinking that's Achilles. Is it? Or is that Patroclus? Not being obnoxious, being quite matter of fact.
I was going to say, to your point too, why does Achilles choose Patroclus? And I think
but the reason why I asked that is because this is a guy who doesn't think he's good looking, who doesn't think he has any hope, who doesn't think he's got any skills, who's been a categorical disappointment to everyone in his life, who's been exiled, who decides to stay in his pit of misery, to isolate himself even further. And yet somehow that magnetizes Achilles for him to be selected and chosen. And for me, it's like, I love the fact that Patroclus, we have that sort of viewscape, because he doesn't know why he's chosen. We don't know. And we never really get to know. We just see Patroclus's version of events, which is often in the dark about Achilles's what's going on in his head.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Achilles displays one of the most healthy versions of a secure relationship I've ever seen, which I love.
Absolutely. Yeah. My kind of reading on it, it's true they don't expressly say it, but I think, Patroclus doesn't like Achilles really. He's jealous, so that's color. He's like, this guy has had everything handed to him. He's perfect, and he's the one that his dad said,
Compared
now
him
that's the
to.
son. And most of the reason that Patroclus feels that way is because society and his father have very specific ideas about what honor means, what it means to be a man, and
Masculinity.
and all of that is such a huge kind of component in this story, and how they each can show different sides to the masculine, feminine sides of people,
Mm-hmm.
not their sex or gender, but sort of
A
society's
trait.
view on that.
Mm-hmm.
And but he's been treated like garbage his whole life too, so he doesn't they are really polar opposites in a lot of ways. But because he's jealous, and because he's not fawning over Achilles like all the other boys that are there of various backgrounds, they're all like just trying to get Achilles' attention, just trying to impress
That's
him.
right.
And Patroclus almost like, it's like almost feels invisible and almost wants to be, because he's feeling this guilt over accidentally killing this other kid. He's lost. He doesn't know what to do. But I think him not caring about impressing Achilles and kind of pushing back against him when they do interact, I think that's attractive to Achilles, because he's so used to getting everything that he wants.
It's a challenge.
But I also think there's a side to Achilles that is nurturing, and I think would want to protect someone like this, who he's had the space and the grace and the opportunity to see how many different people live, and seeing this, poor kid who is having such a hard time. I think there's a protective side to it. But it's interesting, especially in some of the earlier parts of the book, Patroclus kind of compares Achilles to his mother, who they call Simple. She was hit in the head by her father as a child. We don't know if that contributed to some of her health problems, but I think the simplicity of Achilles and the like how trusting he is, how he values honesty, and sort of he's not necessarily pragmatic, but he has this sort of open, caring side to him that Patroclus gets to see. And I think it's that dynamic of like a little bit opposites attract. It's like black cat girlfriend, golden retriever boyfriend.
Yeah. He is kind of, isn't he?
Which,
Hello.
yeah.
And Aaron brings up a really great point about Achilles. His one trait, though, that can be off-putting, if you don't interest him, he doesn't even recognize that you exist. And
that's a privilege too. He doesn't have to.
A lot of the other boys that are just trying to get his validation, he doesn't even realize it. The women that are kind of like fawning and trying to get his attention, he doesn't notice them. We later see that when he's forced to get married and impregnate his wife, he just ignores her existence because, he just doesn't like them. So that's the thing. He gets to pick and choose who, where, how, when. I will say, though, if you kind of modernize that trait, a lot of the time, especially with men, it is a famous, successful man who can pick and choose their whims, and that is often abused. And in this case, he's very selective. He has chosen one, and he has waited until he has found the one that he's liked, even though many were waiting up desperate for that honor in a way. So that's the difference between a woman writing the book.
Oh my God, 100%. I agree with Andrea as well. I think Achilles likes him and even loves him because Patroclus treats Achilles like a normal human and sees beyond his destiny and greatness. And I totally agree with that. And I'm interested to see in the second half of the book if we see more of that kind of cold aloofness from Achilles.
Detachment.
Yeah, something like that. But it's interesting because, we read Circe first, and that obviously deals with the role of women in ancient Greece in many, many ways. But in this one, it's so interesting that she started with the male perspective, because there are these glaring, horrible mentions of rape and abuse and how women are treated in the book. And yet, and you pointed this out to me, Maude, that Achilles' father.
Achilles is a product of rape. Yes, trigger
Yeah.
warning for that with the discussion.
But he's described as beloved and this great guy and all of that, but he,
forced himself. And it was almost a game. It was almost a game. It was a rite of passage. If you wanted to bed a goddess, and obviously that is like above your station, let's say, it had to, you couldn't seduce. It wasn't sort of like a prize you could win. It was something that you had to take.
Yes.
And I thought it was really, really interesting that usually when that is depicted, when a man makes that choice, it is from a very dark, evil place. And they are a very unlikable character. But throughout this entire story, this king is honest. He is just. He is respected. And yet it's like, hello, forced her on the beach. She was kicking and screaming and then subdued. And then when he finally, managed to do it, the gods then forced Thetis to live with him for a year against her will. So she,
and it's part of their society, and it's interesting because our very natural reaction to that is horror and disgust, but in this society, it is just how things are. And I think every part of this story plays again with some of these gender roles and showing sort of the hierarchy of, you've got nobility and sort of the feudal system and all of that, but then you have women and men, you have is she a princess? A princess, but then you have a goddess.
Yep.
So goddess Trump, but ultimately the goddess can't Thetis. She can't do everything. That she doesn't have, the kind of unlimited power that some of the other gods have. Yeah. She's also, I believe, a demi-goddess. So she's
like a nymph, a sea nymph.
Yeah, which is similar to Circe's mother as well. Yeah. And I found the whole sequence on the island with the princess, whose name is escaping me.
I don't think I wrote it in the notes either. Diamea.
That sounds right. And how she kind of is, because she's the oldest of the daughters, and her father only had daughters, and he's sort of this on his way out old king. And so she's able to sort of like rule her little roost. At the beginning, we see her sort of like, just come to me, I'm in charge here, and uses that sort of to taunt Patroclus, because she knows that he's looking for Achilles, and sort of parades him around. At least that's
like her plaything.
Interpreted. Yeah, and just doing that. But then as soon as Achilles is revealed to be who he is outside of what she knows, he immediately gets the power, and she's got none. And she starts out as this very like haughty kind of, figure.
Brat. Spoiled
brat. And then she, within that reveal and sort of the power play, all of the players being revealed, I guess, the next time we see her is she's sobbing in her room. And then she's eventually sent into exile, which is exactly what happened to Patroclus, but he killed somebody. She just got pregnant.
But she was forced into it. She was promised something. And there was this really powerful moment where she's just yelling at this goddess saying, "You've ruined me."
Yep.
Like, I get one shot of being a virgin and you took that, and now I'm like going to be a mother, and he doesn't even love me, and he's going to leave me. And
he's not even going to marry. Now he's not going to even marry me. Like,
She got absolutely screwed over in the process. Yeah.
And Thetis, I mean, the
people are pawns.
She doesn't care at all. It's like they're like ants to her.
She wasn't walked away. She was sent to live with a relative, like stay with the aunt kind of situation. But it's like, we're going to remove you from.
She'd have a a maid to take care of her, but she would just be alone without any of, anything else. And
Not a
so
part of the court anymore. Yeah.
exactly. And yeah, I think seeing kind of, you see how the way that Achilles and Patroclus were both raised, how that affects their dynamic together. And I think one good thing for Patroclus is that he gets, he meets Achilles when he is at his lowest. He's always been at his lowest to this point. And I think
Mm.
Achilles feels seen like a person instead of a tool or a god or, something like that. And Patroclus gets to have a sort of safe space to be himself for the first time with Achilles,
Mm.
as because he likes that he will tell him Achilles values honesty. So even if it's maybe a negative feeling about something, he still values that. And I think that's really important, that while he's still sort of like, I mean, for ancient Greece, you're an adult at 16, I guess. But in those,
Yeah.
from 10 to 16, he has a confidant. He has someone who's looking out for him, but who also likes him for him, despite all the horrible things he feels about himself. And that sort of gives him a little bit of a sort of confidence boost in himself. And then I want to talk about Chiron too, because I
Yes.
loved all of those scenes.
Same. We were talking about hierarchy, and I think Chiron really sort of like loves to
Yeah.
mess with that. It is not often gods are revered. Gods are top echelon. We hear stories and tales about what happens when you defy or upset or enrage gods or a god. And some of these punishments, we heard about Tyrannocles, who, had greed. And even though everyone was playing nice, he decided to conquer his neighbors. And then he decided to trick the gods. And then he decided to cook his son and try to feed it to the gods. And his punishment is forever being trapped in a pit on the verge of starvation and dying of thirst forever. That's where he's at now.
Gods love to do the darkest stuff, and for sometimes it's a big slight, but sometimes it's not, and it's
And we
just
saw that in Circe, where the slight,
don't piss
and
me off.
this is almost like I can't believe I'm going to say this, the ancient Greek version of cancel culture. You get to mess up once. And if you do, you are done. You're done. You don't get to learn the lesson. You get to suffer in torment for eternity. So that's interesting. But, there are scapegoats for that, which is why when you are a scapegoat and you pay the consequence in such a severe way, that tale then becomes the learning lesson and passed on,
It's sort of the boogeyman story, to keep your kids in line or things like that. Yeah, absolutely.
But Chiron in this instance has a very lower goddess, but still a goddess, trying to control the situation and dictate his actions. And Chiron doesn't buy into that shit. Odysseus is a little bit the same as well, where he's okay to upset a lesser goddess because he's got Athena on his side as his shield.
I'm not a Odysseus fan in general, or from Circe, or what we get so far of him here. But that was a good move. I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
You're not quite you're not at the upper echelon. And that's why she also can't, even though she wants to make Achilles immortal and burn away his mortal blood, she can't. She has to win another god's favor. So she's still kind of in that in between. And I think Chiron is interesting as well, because he does kind of exist outside. He's a little bit like a Yoda type. He exists outside of the normal systems of power, but he also is not just one binary thing or the other, the way that I think a lot of the Greek men and women are sort of sorted into those boxes of what is good for a man, what is good for a woman, etc. Where, yes, he doesn't even start out training Achilles to fight. It's
the liar.
It's the liar. Healing wounds, all things that are traditionally considered to be women's work. And
Mhm.
so he's able,
Well, they're both technically princes and were raised as princes. So this is very basic menial tasks for
yes,
them.
that's
But it
true.
was so interesting hearing Patroclus saying that the work was fun. It was great. They got to be able to learn sort of basic survival skills now that they're on their own and doing their own thing, and that they really appreciated it. And him taking to sort of like surgery was a really interesting thing as well. But
Yeah.
Chiron, yeah, taught the basics.
And I think too, he's able, he values respect. I think he has Patroclus and Achilles, I think, share some of his values in different ways too. That really resonates. But um, yeah, I just think that he's kind of showing them there is a way to be a warrior and to heal. There is a way to
Mhm.
be one thing and the other. And I think Patroclus especially learns a lot from him just about sometimes you do need to fight. Sometimes
Yeah.
there are things worth fighting for, to the point where I believe he says, like, his name is sort of, when he goes to the island to find Achilles, his name isn't like an offshoot of Chiron, like son of Chiron,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is interesting. And we skipped over this, but for everyone, most people grow up reading Greek mythology and things like that, or learning about it. But there's a lot of pop culture references as well. And just as y'all were reading or listening, were there any particular, there's Troy, I know Maude, you have a great one of what you were thinking for Achilles.
Oh, yeah. Well, they described him like the voice that they used, where he was so steadfast and sure, the golden hair, the fact that he was like really feminine yet really masculine at the same time. The
Mhm.
Hercules, the 1997 Disney animated movie Hercules with
Kate
that.
Donovan doing the voice. Heck yeah. Roger
You know,
Bart doing the songs.
the
Anyway.
twin has a curl in it. That because it's obviously got that Greek, that sort of like thicker Greek nose, but beautiful feminine lips, and I think that juxtaposition, we were talking about it before, how Achilles has a tendency to be a bit of a protector as well. He so beautifully encompasses masculine and feminine qualities, and we are learning about how he is wanting to kind of encompass both of them and doesn't really care what people think about it at the
Because
same
he doesn't have to, for the most part too. I
time.
think there's
True.
that like comfort of knowing that in the room he's probably the one person beyond the king, and he's destined to be a king.
Yeah. And
Spoiler.
he's going to be the best soldier in the world.
And he's
So it's
been
like,
destined to be the best warrior ever, and this sort of like otherworldly. Again, he's part god, he's half goddess. But I also thought a lot about Hades, which I've been playing again for the second time, and Chiron made me think of this. Chiron in Hades is not a centaur.
oh,
I looked at the images. He's like tall and in a cloak, and I was like, what? So I haven't done a deep dive yet, but I want to look at Chiron and if there are like two different descriptions of him. But I love the Patroclus Achilles
give me 2 seconds.
side quest in
Dude's
there.
a centaur. Dude's a centaur.
In
Chiron's a centaur. He's got a cloak on because he's hiding his 4 hoof legs. Yes.
Can you tell? He's
Chiron in Hades.
Hades
Let's
is
have a
great.
look.
So good. Everyone.
Who's a centaur?
Charon versus Chiron. Charon versus Chiron. That's why. Thank
Charon.
you.
Charon.
One letter off.
Oh my God, Karen, who wants to speak to the manager.
Chiron is on the river Styx. Thank you very much. My mythology credits are being revoked. I was thinking of Chiron. Mystery solved. But yeah, I love the art style in Hades as well. And so thinking of some of those characters from that has been really fun.
Hold on, Achilles, Hades game. Let me look at this beautiful boy.
Because there's a side quest where you reunite them.
And Patroclus is black.
In Hades?
In Hades, Patroclus is black.
Yeah.
I like that. Better than Garrett and Brad Pitt.
You're looking at Troy.
Yeah, so that's the other thing.
Oh,
So,
also, yes, Troy, yeah.
yeah, so you've got Brad Pitt, who, and I did not picture Brad Pitt once reading this, thank goodness. And I'm not going to watch the movie until after I read the book because I do not want to be tainted by that. Because apparently they make that version of Achilles straight AF, and that is
Yeah, which it's interesting. I was looking at some of because there are a lot of different. You've got the Iliad and got Homer and Plato and all of the sort of classics, but there are different versions of stories, that we found. There's and what I love about this book or anything that kind of takes that mythology is there are elements of it and doing your own thing, but there you pointed out we haven't gotten to his weakness at all, him potentially being
no,
dipped in the river Styx, but they also Achilles didn't even fully know his own prophecy
no.
and what that was destined to be.
That's because he's got a helicopter mother who also happens to be a demigoddess. So
Oh
we're
my gosh.
reminded
Yeah, boundaries, Thetis, boundaries. But I
Achilles and the mother issues.
we'll see that in the second half of the book as, he goes to battle, there might be elements of that. But another version of why he is impenetrable beyond like the weakness in his heel.
Achilles heel.
Yeah, exactly. Was that Thesis tried to burn the mortal blood out of him, but got caught by Zeus, someone, I'd have to look it up again, before she could finish. So that's a different version of the story, which I love. That ended up being sort of something that she wants to do, and maybe they'll play around with some of these stories as well to have it happen later. I don't know. I'm not sure, but
Something really interesting though with Thetis as well, which is like she's obviously a helicopter mother. She's trying to keep her son alive. I totally get that. But she's also really precious about his reputation. He's destined to be a soldier who's going to stand the test of time when it comes to, his iconness.
iconography
You know what I
status.
mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
I do.
exactly. His legend. And yet one of her plans is to make him dress up as a woman, and that's what's used against him as blackmail.
No,
So
absolutely. I think there's also an interesting point from Vaden. I think they're foreshadowing his weakness with the constant references to his feet and speed being his main advantage in combat. That is a great point. Yeah, Thetis, gosh, I want to like her because I love a vengeful sea goddess so much. One of my favorite types of villains, but she, who boy, it's so interesting. I kept asking myself, is Patroclus, because I tried not to refresh my mind too much on the prophecy and everything, because obviously I know how certain things play out, because this is mythology, but
Mhm.
trying to sort of wait until I'm done to really deep dive on all the different versions. But um, wondering why she's so set against Pericles beyond he's human, he's weak, he's not worthy. There's this sort of like feral, like
He's my son.
so
Yeah.
focused. Well, I think that
Mine. Possessive.
exactly there's this possessiveness and this like neediness that I also understand because he's the product of
All he
sexual
has.
assault and this horrible thing, but he's also all she has. And because he's still part mortal and while she's a demigoddess, she's not a king. And so he still lives with his father and she still has to visit him there. And she doesn't even get to experience the full kind of motherhood from what was a traumatic experience. And so I think and obviously knowing the prophecy, which leads into thoughts about fate. Does knowing your prophecy make it so that we've talked about this
Mhm.
many times, but does being aware of what your fate is make it so that you're so aware of it that you end up falling right into it because you're
That's it.
fighting against it?
Yeah, and it pushes you into it. But would that still be the case if you didn't know the prophecy? It's the biggest sort of mystery of it all, where if you didn't know, would the outcome be the same, or is it happening because you're trying to change it?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, exactly, and pushes
Yeah.
into it. She's You'd think that she would be a little wiser in terms of prophecies. Like one of the big things when Patroclus is asking about it, or when Achilles is first told it, and he questions it. Is this certain? Is this 100%? Like, you challenge the prophecy going, does it have to be this way for me? Is this locked into stone?
Mm-hmm.
And because Thetis is immortal and obviously knows the power of the prophecy, she would be smart enough to not try to manipulate it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, Elle has a good point. Awareness doesn't play a factor. The threads of fate are spun and adjust accordingly if need be. I wonder if, well, I hope that Madeline Miller is working on a third book, but I'd love to see
Oh,
some.
she is.
Stephanie
Persephone?
and
Persephone, that's
Hayden.
me.
Oh, I love
I believe it was Kate, Miss Necromancer, who started the chat by dropping that.
Oh, awesome. That's very exciting. But I also want to read one about the muses because I find them the three muses. I also, oh, this is an aside, but I saw Hades Town musical a couple weeks ago. I took my mom for Mother's Day, and that is the story of Orpheus, who plays the lyre, and Eurydice, who is his muse, and she ends up also kind of trapped in a pact with Hades. But it's Hades, Persephone, those two characters, Hermes, but it's set in sort of like in the
Hermes is the.
style of Prohibition era, like New Orleans brass band, church, gospel. It is tailor made to me because I like
Wow.
music too. But if it's playing anywhere near you at any time, cannot recommend. If you like mythology and musicals, cannot recommend it enough. It will probably be on my Spotify Wrapped this year because I've listened to it nonstop. But that's another really, I love kind of the more human or relatable stories of takes on these myths.
I could do a TED talk about how Hermes is the shit stirrer of the gods.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Yeah. And he,
Dude's a puppeteer master. He's a master of manipulation, and but this is the thing, we're talking about it, how gods become bored because they've lived for so long
yep.
that, but what I do like about Odysseus, even though he's done some shady shit, what I do love about him is that I understand why he's a patron of Athena, because dude's
Mhm.
smart.
He's
Dude
smart.
is
Hmm.
so smart. He fought with his muscles, but he also has just as strong a wit and cunning. Like, he'd be in Slytherin for sure. But he dances with the gods, and he's the guy who kind of finds the loophole and
Yes.
lives in the loophole of sort of God, and tiptoeing that line.
Hmm.
Vaden says trickster gods like Hermes, Loki, and so many others are tons of fun in mythology. But when Odysseus sort of like plays at that level, like, it really bridges a lot of the gap between gods and humans in that particular way. So I don't know. I think Odysseus is a really interesting character.
He absolutely
And he's
is.
100% Sean Bean. If anyone's going to play Odysseus, like, that is
Oh
the one
man.
thing I'll give that movie credit for. And even the author, the narrator, made him sound like Sean Bean as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There were these like TV miniseries in the 90s about some of these myths. I'm pretty sure there was one that was the Odyssey, but there was one with Jason and the Argonauts that I was also obsessed with, that I think deals with harpies and things like that. I was just gonna search something.
We're talking about Odysseus, Sean Bean. Sean Bean, Sean Bean,
It'll
Sean
come.
Bean.
It'll come back to me. But yeah, I do. There was something in the comments too that, and I agree with this, that I didn't read it Thetis as being against Patroclus because he was a man.
Oh,
Um,
Aaron's saying it.
but
Gamers are
yeah,
one.
but more
I think
so.
I think Thetis
Also,
wasn't against her son being with another boy or man. It was that she didn't think that he was worthy of her son and would hold him back from his destiny.
exactly. Elle never apologized to going full nerd. That is exactly why we're here, and we want all of your knowledge about classics and mythology.
Yeah.
Very exciting. So please, please don't stop because we love it. Um, there's kind of, we've mentioned some of these other gods and things like that. Are there any
You know what? I think
right
Thetis,
up?
you could easily modernize Thetis being the meddling mother-in-law
Yes,
who is
yes,
overprotective of her son.
yes.
Yes, like I think that that's a lot of
Monster in
fun.
Love. Remember that was a movie that came out? Jane Fonda.
Monster-in-law. Yes,
The
yeah,
2000s were a weird time
with
for movies.
J-Lo, Jennifer
Yes,
Lopez.
maybe.
I
That
think
sounds
so.
right.
Being protective of her son because they were from money and she was Jenny from the block. There you go. But you were saying, we are talking about a mythology. There are usually cameos from different big players in the Greek mythology. Chiron is one of them. He taught, and I love the name drop. He taught Jason and he
Mhm,
taught Heracles.
mhm.
So the best, most renowned sort of heroes in the time, Chiron he's renowned for doing it. And I think it's also funny, like he's also responsible for things that other people are getting credit for, like teaching medicine. And if you
Mhm.
look at sort of like the global symbol of what medicine is, it's the
Mhm.
intertwining snakes. And so the snake has become sort of like the symbol
Yeah.
of medicine. And Chiron's like, well, actually, that was me. And they're like, don't you care that like the snake got the credit? And he's like, as long as everyone's learning.
Which
Hero.
Chiron super relate to that sentiment. It's like as long as it gets done, credit doesn't matter.
True.
Um, I also want to talk more about the growing sort of romance between the two as well because I thought it was
So
so
well.
well done and such a a really great portrayal of this sort of earnest, anxious, young feelings for your friend. And
It's very Call Me By Your Name.
it's yes, without the age gap,
Yeah.
but
Really miscast.
I just posted a meme the other day somewhere that was like it was one of those we need an American Girl doll that blank, and it was we need an American Girl doll that made her Barbies kiss when her parents weren't looking, and I was like, hello.
Yeah.
I'm like doing that with a friend, and like you're like young and you don't really understand kind of everything that's going on with you, but the sort of earnestness and like fear from Patroclus when he kisses him, and Achilles runs away and he's sort of taken over by these emotions when um, and just the sort of tender way that they're sort of tiptoeing
Mm.
towards each other, that like you're like, oh, when let them smooch, when are they gonna smooch?
Let them smooch. Yeah, Jimmy, no, buddy, you don't want to do that at all. All right. But
No.
you're exactly right. That young sort of love, I don't want to take a step that way because I don't want to risk everything. The
Mhm.
friendship is so important to me, but I have feelings that extend upon that and further than that. But it's so funny that like the factor really was Thetis's involvement. And
Mhm.
as soon as Thetis confesses, I can't see you in the forest where you're training, it was on.
Well, I think too, Patroclus, I don't think is very good at hiding his emotions.
Shouldn't play poker. Not at all.
Absolutely not. We have that in common. But I think Achilles can sense, especially once I talk about this a lot in book club, but like removing characters from the system of power into sort of an other place where they can explore other things. Shakespeare, Boccaccio, Battlestar Galactica, like any kind of sci-fi, taking people out of
The
the world
normal.
that they live in. Yeah. And
Mm.
so there's kind of this safeness there. And I think Achilles can tell, like, also Heracles kissed him, so that's obvious. But I believe Achilles asked Thetis. Thetis?
Thetis.
Yeah, what my brain. ADHD, y'all. But he asks her, "Can you see me?" And she gets annoyed that he asks because she probably can pick up why he's asking. But
Mhm.
he's doing that to sort of reassure Patroclus that it's okay. She can't see us. We can take another step into this. I also really
They didn't take a step, they jumped.
they jumped right in, and I loved that when they're thinking about like their love for each other, how they're feeling. Um, Patroclus says Achilles is like the sun, and you know that feeling, but it's
Dude's
you,
on a pedestal, and of
you
course he
revolve.
is.
Of course, that's his whole world. He's revolving around him. He feels the warmth when he's on him. It's a very clear reading of that. But I thought it was so interesting that after they get together for the first time, he says he feels like he could eat Achilles. He could eat the world raw, and
Yeah.
that to me spoke again of at least my interpretation of there is this violence and warrior in him. It's for a purpose,
And this was unleashing him in a
but
way.
I think that kind of those two different lines and the way that they're thinking about each other, I think sums up their relationship and who they are as people really well, to show that we haven't really even seen sort of Achilles unleashed. He wasn't even really allowed to fight with other boys when he was younger. They're trying to sort of keep
We've
this
seen him at 4%. And
exactly.
this is actually an anime kind of trope
Mm,
where someone is super powerful and it's the length and strength and sort of like depth of their power is slowly unveiled. And then you realize that they've been operating like that's actually, yeah, there you go. That's actually a part of My Hero Academia, which is an anime I'm obsessed with, which is what the
mhm.
big Deku energy is all about. He can only use a particular percentage of the power because it will kill him if he goes all the way with it. He has
Yeah.
to like learn how to train into that power. But I think that's what's really exciting is that we have not seen Achilles like in action. We got a glimpse of it when he was tricked, rips off the dress, and within seconds he's
Ready.
unsheathed. And like that was such a I really want to talk about Madeline Miller's writing, how every sentence is full of purpose. They're not words for the sake of words. It's not embellishment. The reason why this book is like, I guess, shorter and the pacing is like so well done is because every sentence has a purpose. Every word has purpose. And I just think that the way that she writes is so descriptive as well, that in this moment where Odysseus has brought the women, the dancers into the hall, knowing that kind of like Achilles is masquerading as one of them,
Mhm.
and they blow the trumpet, the warning sign, which
Mhm.
is shit's about to go down, and he
His
snaps into
body,
action,
it's like the body keeps memory. It's just
instinctual.
it's exactly. And another point where Odysseus is, you're just like, oh, that was smart. That was a smart move. And playing it so cool. And he's there for, he's not just there like, hey, you want to come fight in this war? He's being very cool and casual. And you're
Oh, I
like,
loved that. And it was almost like you're seeing what high charisma looks like. He has to enlist boys into an army voluntarily. So
mm-hmm,
he has to dangle this carrot. And usually the carrots in Greek history is honor,
mm-hmm.
pride, you have status, reputation, you were glorified, and wealth. And so they're like, people will remember your name and you'll be really, really rich. And then he goes, that's my cell. See ya. And he goes, wait, aren't you going to coerce me? Aren't you going to intimidate me? And he's like, no. Do you want to do it? You do it. If you don't, you don't. But
But
then
I think
the
that for
loopholes.
a lot of men and young boys in this society, that would be enough because that's what's valued. This
Yeah.
war is, they're not framing it as this, that Helen was
Oh, you'll
kidnapped.
be back by June.
I'm excited to see how deep they go into that because they hint like, yeah, her husband kept her locked away for her protection. How did she get stolen in the night? It's like, Maybe she wanted
Mhm.
to leave.
And we've already mentioned that Paris has earned favor from Aphrodite.
Mhm.
So you know this dude's a babe.
And I also think that kind of shows kind of where we leave off at chapter 6 when we finish chapter 16 of Achilles really deciding, even though he knows he the prophecy says he will not return from this battle, that he will die young, he would rather die young in
Then lose his
honor
godly
than
powers.
lose all of that and be forgotten. They paint their heroes on everything. On just remember the opening to the animated Hercules. It's all over their pots. It's all over everything, and and I
Legacy. Yeah.
and Patroclus. I love in the last couple of chapters where he's thinking it's their last night and he views kind of their room and their bed together as a tomb, as like this is because
Mm.
if Achilles were to stay, he wouldn't be Achilles
He'd be
anymore.
trapped. Yeah.
And if he leaves, all of that, and then Patroclus goes to scream at the sky on top of these rocks to Thetis, basically seemingly going to just fling himself off of them because the safe place that they've created for themselves, this is sort of the breaking point. This is They keep talking about wish we could play the lyre. They eat figs together. They in the later part of this, they're doing a lot of the things they did as kids together, almost as a way to
Mhm.
like, stave off real life. And this
Yeah.
is sort of the moment where they realize we can't. And I'm super interested to see how Patroclus responds to when Achilles does kind of show his real power as a warrior.
Yeah. Yeah. And sees
I
him as like this near god.
Mhm.
There is one beautiful, I know we're wrapping things up in any minute now, but a quote that I thought was really well done was Achilles asking Patroclus, like they're talking about heroes, and he knows that he's destined to be one. And he says, "Do you know of any happy heroes?" Nope. It all ends in tragedy. Like the destiny of a hero is your glory starts when you die. And it's how you die, or like the tragedy of it all, that becomes glorified. And
But
he's just like, "I just wanna be happy and in love."
I know, but even Heracles, like looking at, previous stories and their sort of miserable ends, and most of them stem from being so in love.
Yeah, love is a
And to
curse.
lose.
Oh,
I know. It's, and that is the trick with love, right? Is if you risk it, you risk being heartbroken. But if you don't, then you don't get any of the good out of it either. But yeah, I love the
mhm.
writing. I love this story. I'm so excited to listen to the rest of it and see how, what we know generally about the myth of Achilles, how it plays out with these characters.
Yeah, we're about to charge headfirst into heartbreak, you guys.
Oh, 100%. I'm ready
This is
to
gonna suck.
cry, ready to cry. It's time for your homework. That hour just blew on by. I'm so glad we're doing 2 episodes. This is so fun. So your homework is to finish the book. Just finish the book and then let us know. Book good?
But good. Super hungry.
So finish the book and join me and Maude live
Thanks,
next
Mom.
Wednesday, June 29th, 5 p.m. Pacific. We're going to finish our discussion. Come with questions, come with thoughts, come with fan castings.
Mm.
Don't forget to send us your recommendations. You can use the hashtag Nerdist Book Club on social media. We're going to have different polls throughout the rest of the year. Next month are my picks, so you get to vote on one of 4 books that I have put forth.
Murder mystery
I
thriller.
don't know if the poll is up. I didn't go like deep, like gnarly horror because I don't feel like reading that right now.
I don't get scared.
But make sure you follow Nerdist on Twitter for when that poll goes up. And yes, 2 book clubs in a row. So we also discuss book ideas in the Geek Bomb Discord, which is where we host our weekly book club. after show. So if you're new to book club or if you haven't joined us for that after show yet, Maude can break it down for you. Maude?
Yeah. So we try to expand the community discussion of book clubs for more than just this 1 hour of power that we get. We have a reading section in Geek Bomb's Discord where we talk about books 24/7, and we cover not only this book for the second half of the month, but we do an additional book on the first half of the month. And if you want to join that, it is a Patreon perk. If you head to patreon.com/geekbomb, you get access to the reading channel, and you get to be a part of Geek Bomb's book club shows for those 2 weeks where you join in a Discord call. And you also get access to that exclusive after show that happens on the final episode of Nerdist's Book Club, where we talk about all the things that we missed and we get your input and you become a big part of the discussion as well. And that's not recorded. So you got to be there or be square, I'm afraid.
Yes. So after next week's show, we will be heading to the after show to talk even more about the book. But I am also going to be chiming in on the Discord later to look for more book recommendations for when I'm reading other books, because always chasing that. But this has been so much fun. We hope that you're enjoying the book so far and chatting with us. Tweet at us, send us messages, all of that with your thoughts, and join us next week. We are super excited.
See you guys at 5 p.m. next week. Bye.
Bye.